Hey, hello, and welcome, guys, to another episode of Salty Takes. This podcast is brought to you by SaltyTheGathering, your destination for casually competitive Elder Dragon Highlander. I am your host, Sesmio the Excel, and today we bring you guys a special episode. We have with us a member of the Lotus family. She's also a friend of ours and part of the Salty family as well. Um, and after some debating, I think we all decided that she would be the perfect fit for this week's topic, which is world building and storytelling. So, without further ado, I introduce you guys Narcotics, friend of ours, writer, part of the family. Narcotics, how you doing?
Hey, Sesmio. Say hi, baby.
Hi.
Say hi.
Hi.
Hello.
How you doing? I'm doing good, my love. What about you? It's nice for you to have me.
Thank you. I'm
It's a
doing
great pleasure.
great. I'm doing great, Narcotics. I didn't know I was gonna get the two-piece combo here, but it's fine. I love the baby too.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean,
it's
it's very unexpected. I
no, it's
didn't even.
okay. It's okay. But yeah, so this week we're gonna talk about something that is near and dear to my heart as somebody that um I guess I wanted to write short stories and novels when I was in high school and when I went to college. It was part of the dream too, but um this nigga Marcus. It was part of the dream too, but it was difficult to find time and approval and backup from my family to fully engage on writing. I do write poetry from time to time. It's funny enough. Hercules is in the chat.
Right.
He,
Poetic man.
yeah, he be doing my revisions. Hercules, he be doing my revisions. He always tells me like, you should publish this. I've been telling you you have a lot of talent. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, listen, bro, you're being biased. You love me too much. Everything I do, you always tell me to publish. If I make a song, he's like, you should publish this. If I whatever I do, he's like, you should publish it.
I
You should publish
mean,
it.
to be honest though, listen, in today's music industry, you can probably publish it even if you're whack. Why? Because today's music suck ass.
Yeah, you are not wrong on that one. But narcotics. Let's dive into it. It's not gonna be a questionnaire. I'm not gonna bombard you with questions. We're just gonna talk about some of the things that people that attempt to write or want to write. It could be a short novel, a story, a book, uh, an essay, like all these things that require creative writing. We're gonna talk about creative writing, not academic writing. So thank you, Mishu, for this year's. So if any of you guys in the chat are watching this
Miss
show,
you. Thank you.
thank you, Mishu. If any of you guys in the chat are watching the show for help on your English homework, this is not the place, baby. We're gonna talk about creative writing and fantasy writing here, and this is gonna go in conjunction with what Salty is doing this week. This week and next week is gonna be our D&D weeks. So we are supporting and encouraging people to be more creative, be more out there. Anything that is in your mind, any ideas you wanna make happen, you should definitely do so. So Narcotics, you are a writer, right?
Yes, sir. I mean, I
Yes,
won't I won't say
sir.
full time, but part time. I do it whenever I want to.
Oh yeah,
Writing is a great pleasure, to be honest. It's a great stress reliever, and just since I have so much shit running around in my head, it's a great place to throw it and create my own little world.
that's nice. Do you would you consider yourself a fictional writer, a romantic writer? Like what genre do you actually fit in for most of the stuff that you write? Like, do you write
Be
dramas? What do
to
you write?
be honest, like for example, because it really depends on how I am feeling. Depending on how I'm feeling, like for example, like sometimes I do write poetry. So that's why I gave you a big thumbs up. I didn't know you was a poetry guy. You're very
Yes,
poetic.
yes, yes.
Aw, that's mad cute.
I dabbled. I dabbled a little bit. I took like 2 classes in college, and I was part of the reading and writing club in Brooklyn College and in City Tech. So I did.
But so for poetry, I was a big fan of Edgar Allan Poe. I'm not sure you guys ever heard of him,
Of
but
course.
he's a very
Mr.
creative,
Telltale Heart.
and yes, oh my God. He's a very creative and a very beautiful writer. People don't really like expressing their dark side, and he as a writer expressed every little parts of his dark side and his dark emotions. And he do it so fluently and so lovely. I just fell in love. So that is one reason why, if I were to go to poetry, I would be romantic, but in a very crazy, sane, dark person, as of like Edgar Allan Poe. Like, if I love you so much, I don't know, maybe I'll rip my heart out, or maybe I'll rip both of our hearts out and put it, under my house like he did. But
Yep. Crazy man.
it
Crazy man.
really depends.
Yes. So poetry.
And then there is for my creative writing. Creative writing, it really depends. Like me, I love, and I'm actually working on a couple of stories in my big book that Sesmio knows about, and he has been harassing me to finish.
Good book.
And basically, if you were to follow what that book is, it will be more a fantasy base. And the reason why I said is because it involved the whole magic systematic system, and it's more as well. It's very chaotic. So it's like basically if you guys were to have any similarities to it, it's like the Hunger Games, people killing each other and try to survive with a mixture of the Avatar, It has a lot of mixtures, but if you want to like have any similarities to anime, I guess the best fit anime that will go into it would be, let's see. I'm not sure if it's it's actually a lot of different animes that could go into it. Because there's so many magic systems and the magic systems go into so in depth, so I don't want to confuse anybody.
So before you start talking about magic systems and stuff like that, because that's one of the things that I did my homework. I did my homework, girl. You know me.
I did my homework too. Like, yeah, I was up yesterday. I'm like, what am I gonna talk with Sesmio? You know what? I'm gonna browse very quick.
I did my homework because I've never had the chance. I wrote one story in Spanish, that you can consider,
Spanish?
yeah, that you can
Wow.
consider fantasy. That was a long time ago. Marcus read it. He was the only person who read it. My Spanish professor read it too. He liked it, and he was asking me. He said he was gonna buy it from me for $20, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna leave it there. Why? I don't know. It's in one of my computers laying around. One of my hard drives should be there.
Okay.
But I wrote one short story, fantasy. That's the only piece of fantasy I've ever wrote. So I didn't have a lot of experience on like systems of magic and a bunch of other stuff the fantasy writers have to deal with. So I was like, let me do my homework because I know Nerdcotics is big on fantasy. Because I've read your stuff before, and you got some crazy systems of magic and some crazy stuff. I was like, holy moly.
It's not that crazy. It's just I really dislike so I read a lot. We both read a lot, from what I acknowledge, both just regular books and sorry, not anime, mangas and such and so on. And it is just like, there's different types of systems, power levelings, and such and so on. I don't want to go too in depth because I don't, that's gonna be one of our categories.
Yeah, we're gonna dive into those things.
But one thing that I really disagree on is that the author don't actually fully explain the system to the readers or to the whoever is acknowledging their work. And it makes things confusing. because then it's like, okay, if this person could do this much and they say, or they are called, one of the most powerful, so their scale should be much higher than others, but then it's like things be all over the place and they don't actually put in detail of how much they could do or what is their limit or why they're considered the top tier or one of the best.
Yes.
And
Let me
you know
let me stop you real quick because you're talking about
okay.
power levels and we have that too. So before we start the actual discussion, we're gonna start with world building and something called Deus Ex Machina. That's Latin for you monkeys in the chat that never went to college. That's Latin. Deus Ex Machina. You can Google that while you're listening to me. Before we jump into all that, big shout out to Nobunaga in the chat, Humble, Christina. I know she loves Edgar Allen Poe. I know she does because me and her like this. And, real recognizes real. Shout outs to Marcus again, Lady Crossheart, my favorite mod of all time. And yes, guys, I'm looking at the chat. I'm reading as we go. But this is going to be a really compressed and complex subject. So if you guys don't see me replying, it's because my brain is trying to comprehend what Miss Ray is saying. Because I'm not the writer. She's the writer. I'm the musician. But she's the writer here. So all these subjects are going to be easier for her to grasp than for me. So let's start with...
I'll take it easy for you guys. Really don't want to confuse you guys, But yeah, it's just me as a person. If you guys didn't know, so I'm gonna just give a brief background for myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Nerdcotics, and my friends call me Ray. I'm a huge writer. I write basically about everything, even the real world, trying to do scientific theories and shit. Like if I'm Albert Einstein, I'm just a person who just tries to connect the dots. And I used to draw a lot, actually, but I stopped drawing because I had just basically a block. I didn't know what to draw about or anything, and it's just anything that would come into my head, it just wouldn't flow out of, and it just used to like make me upset. But when I took writing just became so easy to me. Whatever, I was feeling or whatever the case may be, it would just flow out like water, so smooth and everything. And I stopped drawing and I took writing. And I've been writing for years now, actually. When I was in high school, I entered a contest for poetry. It's funny, right? I entered a contest for poetry and I basically shammed about how whack school is. And apparently my poetry got published.
Congratulations.
Nobody really knows about me because that is like a very huge insider. I don't really like saying it because people then look at me differently. But yeah. It got published and I was like, why did this work get published? I'm like slamming school, how much it sucks and how much teacher sucks and all of this. But it did. Hey, this I guess they like the different perspective of how a student looked at school. And then from there, ever since that, it just writing grew on me, to be honest. Not because it got published. It was more just like I found it interesting of how people could intake writing and view your perspective.
You found your voice.
Yeah, basically, I found my voice exactly how it is.
So, shout out to my man Diane in the chat. So, Nerdcotics. Let's jump into this.
Me too. Poetry is not my thing. Suck at it.
Well, poetry is complex. There are ways to go about it. It's easier to write novels than to write poetry because there are rules to poetry. Well, I'm gonna say this in Spanish because that's how I learned it. versos y prosas, and there's a bunch of other stuff that you gotta. And your word count is different than your word count when you're writing a book. So different other things. As you guys all know, like I said before in the intro, this week in SaltyTheGathering, we are promoting and advocating for you guys in the chat and all of our followers and viewers to, be creative, music, writing, anything like that. We're gonna have a D&D campaign, one shot, 2 episodes this week and next week, where we're promoting you guys to be the best version of yourselves and express yourself through creative writing and all these things. So, our DM, Maurice Parks, he made his own world. So I was thinking, how about I bring Nerdcotics in?
That's a very good question. How do you feel about poetry that doesn't rhyme? That's a very good question. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no, that goes into the things that I was saying about versos y prosas. If you have a poetry that doesn't rhyme, it's just a poetry full of verses, and the word count is different for that. And it has its own name too. Humming. I'm gonna choke you, Nick. I'm gonna choke you. Stop sabotating my thing. I have a whole different topic, bro. Stop. But yes, yeah, no. Poetry that doesn't rhyme is pretty good. Pablo Neruda, which is I think a Chilean writer, he writes a lot of poetry that doesn't rhyme, and it's pretty good. He's one of the best ones at it. Not him saying my full name. Listen, bro, real recognizes real, so it is what it is, Bobby. So, trying to bring it all back away from poetry for a second and into world building. Nerdcotics.
Yes, Sesmio.
You have built. People don't know about this, but I'm pretty sure you already built your own world for the story that you have on the works. The one that has the system of magics based on the elements. That's all I'm gonna say about it. I'm not gonna spoil nobody, nothing. But the world that you built with the system of magic based around the elements. How, as a writer, do you build a world avoiding the Deus Ex Machina effect, which is basically that's Latin, and it means that you're basically showing your hand as a writer. You're giving your character or the plot more emphasis in the world, and you're giving your character random powers ups or protection against things that should kill your character or the main character. How do you build a world that basically protects itself against you trying to pass your mistakes halfway through the book, or giving your character plot armor? How do you avoid doing Deus Machina? Because Deus Machina is when you give your character plot armor. In anime, it happens all the time, right? Like the best example of that would be Itachi Uchiha. That guy has big plot armor. Everybody says, "Oh, Itachi's the GOAT." He has crazy plot armor. He didn't even die. He didn't even get killed. He died because he was sick. That's the craziest Deus Machina ever. You can see Kishimoto's hand holding Itachi by the arm as he takes him away from the manga. It's like, my guy, what? And there are other stuff like Harry Potter and other shows where characters should die and they don't, and you can see the clink in the world where you understand that in that world something like a basilisk, for example, the first book of Harry Potter, if you guys are Harry Potter fans, because we're going to talk about Western stuff too.
I really don't like Harry Potter.
Oh,
I'm sorry. It's just I'm not a huge fan of Harry Potter. For so many levels, but continue.
Okay, so this is gonna be a quick example. I said in the first book, it's in the second book. In the second book, Chamber of Secrets, Harry Potter gets bitten by a basilisk. Previously, in the book, in the prologue, J.K. Rowling stated that once you get poisoned by a basilisk, you die. There is no cure. During the fight, she actually gets Harry bitten by a basilisk. He should have died. What does she does? She uses Deus Ex Machina. Out of nowhere, she says in that scene, she makes a scene that the tears of a phoenix can cure poison from a basilisk. That is there is a clink on the system, on the magic system and in the world, because now basilisks are not in the places they should be in her world when she first built it. She had to take him down to protect the main character. So again, as a writer, the question again is, as a writer, how do you avoid Deus Ex Machina? How do you avoid showing your hand when you're building a world? How do you avoid not breaking the world to protect the characters? How you avoid plot armor? This is the best way of saying it.
So yeah, I understand your question 100%.
I know I got you just for the people, for the monkeys in the chat. But go ahead.
So before I answer this question, let me just say about the Harry Potter. I don't like Harry Potter for so many reasons because there's so many plot armor. It's basically another version of Bleach. And to be honest, I say that for many reasons because Harry should have died immediately. So that's what it has been stated. But he didn't because he's the main character. But there's so many, times where as well, it's not even the author's fault. It's more as the audience. They try or they love a character so much that they don't believe that they should die. So I have mixed emotions. Of course, the writer, you have the utmost power to just say that nigga's dead and that's it. But sometimes you don't want to make the audience upset or make the audience sad, especially if it's the readers. That's the fan base. But like how I said, it's to each its own. The best way that I could say it is more as for my world. So a brief discussion. My world is very complex. My world has a very strong and wide variety of magic, and the reason why I say that is because, for example, like how I told you, I am a writer and I have many inspirations. One of my biggest inspirations is, of course, when I was little, who didn't watch Avatar? Aang, a beautiful, boy who left when everybody needed him and the world went to
but Avatar is another example of Deus Ex Machina. He got frozen in ice.
No, yeah, I know, but
that's super plot armor. He was supposed to die. Like listen, girl. I got all the Avatar comic books right here. I can pull them down. I have my bookshelf on top of my computer set up, and I'm a big Avatar fan. He should have. If we're going by fictional world building and like the world, the ecosystem of the world living on its own without being hurt, Aang should have died when he fought Zuko in the South Pole. Yeah, in the South Pole, when he fights Zuko, he should have died. Zuko is a firebender, fire master, trained by Iroh, the dragon of the fucking north. Like, Zuko was ready to go, and Aang he was an airbender, air master. I guess the only way that Deus Ex Machina wouldn't apply in that situation is that...
Me too. I love Avatar.
No, me too. But the only way that plot armor wouldn't apply there is the foreshadowing of Aang being the last airbender. So Zuko didn't have enough fighting experience against airbenders because he never fought one during his training. That would be the only way for Aang to actually not die in that encounter. That's the only way that the world actually works in that scenario. Like, the elements, all these things, people with magical powers that throw elements out of their hands. This young kid, 12-year-old, I think was 12 or 13 when he came out of the ice.
It was 12.
Yeah, 12 years old. Like, he should have died against Zuko, but Zuko didn't have experience against airbenders, so he didn't know how to kill him.
There's to be honest, to answer your question, it is actually very hard for the main character to not have such plot armor. And the reason why I say this is because technically, if a writer don't put out everything of how the world is, basically the systematic magic system, and basically like how I told you, the power levels and how much it could affect people, or what are the loopholes to it, technically the readers or the audience never actually know what are the loopholes or the weaknesses or such and so on. And that is why...
So in that case, I think... To avoid... Sorry to cut you off. But go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I think we have the same mindset. But I was going to say, to avoid that, what I try to do is I try to make the readers know, almost everything of the magic system of the world that I am in.
Well, I am the opposite. And I would try to make them know as little as they can.
Why would you say that? To be honest, though,
because then it's foreshadowing stuff. the best way to avoid plot armor is foreshadowing tools, right? Again, Aang being the last Airbender.
It depends on how much foreshadowing and how
You
do it.
don't have to break it. So we're gonna jump into system of magics and mix. We're gonna mix systems of magic with plot armor and Deus Ex Machina here real quick. So systems of magics, it could be. It is basic. It refers to the technology or the magic in the world that you're building. If you're building a story based on the future, like Star Wars, the Force and the robots and the ships are the systems of magic. If you're building a world in the past, like the Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, stuff like that, have to deal with actual magic. The spells and the way that the spells works is the system of magic. There are two ways to go about systems of magic. You can go soft magic and hard magic. Hard magic is magic with rules. For example, in the Avatar, an airbender only bends air. A firebender only bends fire. Soft magic is when you don't have rules to the magic. For example, the actual Avatar, Aang, he can bend everything he wants. And he's not attached only to the 4 elements. The Avatar can bend energy, like you see in the last part when he takes away the bending from Fire Lord Shojin through energy bending. He can bend blood if he wants to. He can bend lightning. We see that in the fight when he bends lightning against Shojin. So soft magic is when there is no rules to the magic of the character, and hard magic is when there are rules. To avoid plot armor,
trust no one and trust the Force.
Who is crazy? To avoid plot armor, I feel like foreshadowing and using soft magic helps a lot. You want to give the readers enough of your magic that they understand how things work a little bit, and then you want to leave a huge gap. So when you have people like Itachi pulling up in the middle of the Second Great War, making up a whole genjutsu to kill Kabuto, you don't go, that's bullshit. What the fuck is Izanami and Izanagi have to do with everything? Like now, do she just go blind when they use powers? That was just a poor use of foreshadowing. Itachi was foreshadowed as a prodigy that had Mangekyo Sharingan, invented his own genjutsu and all these things. But the power that he gained at the end was too big for the foreshadow. So I feel like, and that happened because we understand too much about the Sharingan. If people didn't understand too much about the magic system of the Uchiha clan, they wouldn't question when Itachi gets those powers. Because they go, I don't know how that works. I really don't. He got a new power, great. I only know a little bit about it, like it projects through his eyes, but I don't understand how it works, so I believe it.
Question then. If you don't know too much about the system, wouldn't it be also a problem to yourself? Because then, for you as a writer, you need to know as well how much you give, and then
you as a writer have to know about the system. You have to have a basic understanding of it. The audience doesn't, because that's how you avoid people arguing about your plot armor. You should know what your power, the power of the people of the world is.
Oh, I still technically disagree. Like, I understand that foreshadowing is there and you could use it for literally almost everything. And that's the greatest power of foreshadowing. You could be like, literally some crazy shit just happened. That's, hey, foreshadowing. The reason why this happens is because of this.
I'm gonna give you a better example. Have you ever watched Lord of the Rings?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Who hasn't? I'm
gonna give you an example of the two magics and foreshadowing. The ring. We understand how the ring works, right? You put them on, you can become invisible.
Right? Yeah, invisible. Yeah. Nobody can see you.
Nobody can see you. But when you have the ring on and you're invisible, the enemy sees you, right? So that's the rules of that magic. That's hard magic. Here's the magic. Here's the rules to it. People understand that, right? We're still good right here, right? We understand that system of magic right here with the ring.
Yeah.
Now, Gandalf. Nobody understands what the fuck Gandalf does. Through any of the books or the movies. He shows up, he does magic, and he saves the day. And there was at some point he died, and then he was reborn as with different color hair, whatever. But Gandalf has always been soft magic. He's always been crazy powerful, and people don't understand how. We know Gandalf is a magician. He's a wizard, and we know, he does cool magic stuff. But we don't know what are the drawbacks of his magic. We don't understand what is he giving away when he does magic. The reader doesn't have to know that. The reader really doesn't, because Gandalf worked for us perfectly fine. Because we're concentrated on the hobbits and the ring and the big bad guy and all these
you're
things.
concentrated. You're concentrated on basically the major plot. So
Yes.
basically everybody else.
And
And then
throughout the fuck, throughout Lord of the Rings, you don't feel like there's a lot of plot armor, because it's usually a promise, a payoff, and then Gandalf appears. It's not like Gandalf was like babysitting these people, like come with me, my child. I'm gonna take you to. No, he's like, okay, if you guys survive during the second movie, when they were like, oh, if you guys survive, look for me on the. I think he tells them like, look for me on the second sun, whatever. Like he tells them to wait until the morning before he appears, right? So as long as you give the writers, sorry, as long as you give the viewers a promise. What is it? Okay. As long as you give the viewers a promise, and the way that you do the payoff is soft magic, you shouldn't have to explain how the magic of the world works. I know this might have been a little bit confusing to people, but again, hard magic is good to establish a neutral place for the world and to make a world and to have the world, the Force, Jedi's, ships, in Nerdcotics world, the elements, powers that come with the elements, the rate in which people are born with certain elements and all these things, that's perfectly fine. Now, the way that you avoid plot armor with people within those elements is leaving what the specific things that they do open enough that whenever you give them an extra power that they need in the moment, your readers don't go, bitch, I can see her whole hand in the page. She just doesn't want this character to die, man. That's crazy. You don't want readers to feel that way. And I feel like that's the worst feeling when you're reading a book or when you're playing a game that has a story in it. It's feeling like the plot armor is too thick. You can't fight against it.
To be honest, that's why. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Sesmio. But to be honest, that's why I really enjoy when there are mangas, animes, movies, whatever, that actually don't really care about killing the character.